Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Meredith Shea, the Director of Industry Relations at Array. Thank you all so much for joining us for a new edition of Crew Conversations. Before we begin, Array recognizes the Tongva people as the past, present, and future caretakers of the land, water, and cultural resources in the unceded territory of Los Angeles. We are grateful to be allowed to occupy these lands, to live, and to serve our communities. Before we start introductions, I would like to begin with a little reintroduction of Array Crew.
I wanted to join to be a part of the community of minority folks working in the entertainment industry.
This is a special evening for Array Crew. We are honored to have a very important moderator with us. She is a passionate advocate for the rights of Native peoples and works tirelessly across sectors to drive institutional, policy, and cultural change. She's the founder and CEO of IllumiNative, the nonprofit organization dedicated to the formative research of reclaiming Native truth into action. It's IllumiNative's mission to illuminate the vibrancy and importance of Native voices, stories, issues in media, pop culture, education, philanthropy, and more. Their work challenges the invisibility and negative narratives around Native peoples. I am pleased to welcome Crystal Echohawk. Crystal, thank you so much. Thank you for being here on behalf of our founder, Ava DuVernay, and our president, Tulane Jones. Thank you for all of your support for Array over the years, and thank you, crew members, for being here tonight, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Meredith. It's so good to be here, and oh my gosh, I just can't say enough good things about Miss Ava and also Miss Tulane and all the just powerhouse people that make so many good things happen through Array. And one of the things I love about Array is that they are always just such an amazing champion, not only for people of color, but also really they've been incredible champions and co-conspirators and Indigenous representation. So I feel really honored tonight to be, in this space, in this incredible circle, getting ready to have this conversation with some pretty remarkable, awesome folks. I'm again founder and executive director of IllumiNative, and I'm coming to you today from the reservation of the Muskogee Creek people, also known as downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. They never ceded their reservation, so happy to be coming to you from Creek Nation land tonight. And also, I want to say happy Native American Heritage Month, happy Indigenous Peoples Month. It's all the things, and I'm just really excited to be holding space for this conversation tonight. So, but it's not about me. Let's get into just these really cool people that are joining us tonight. And so I'd love to ask each and every one of you to introduce yourselves, your name, where you're coming to us from, your tribal affiliation, and all the things. So Rory, let's start with you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Rory Crittenden. I'm coming to you also from the Muskogee Reservation in Tulsa, and Cherokee Nation citizen. And my main job is like a documentary producer, director, trying to branch out into screenwriting. Just finished a screenwriting lab through the Native American Media Alliance. It was really cool, and just really happy to be here. Good to meet y'all.
That's awesome, Rory. It's nice that we're both coming from T-Town. That's great. Let's move over to the other Crystal that's here. Crystal, would love for you to introduce yourself.
Halito, I'm Crystal DINSBERG. I'm actually dialing in from Denver, Colorado, but my people are from Mississippi and Arkansas, Choctaw tribe. And so basically, yeah, I'm Black and Native American, and I will tell you that I'm extremely proud to be. And I actually have transitioned from being a producer, an associate producer, to a writer's assistant in the room. So everything Rory was saying, like, I'm nodding in agreement. It's very important for us to get our voices out, so through writing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Crystal. And Janelle, let's hear from you.
Yat Janelle Boone, Yinisha. I am from Winter Rock, Arizona, Navajo Nation. I am currently residing in Rochester, New York, Seneca land. I am a script supervisor. I work primarily in features, but I have done commercials, TV, scripted comedy. And I am in the midst of completing my first feature film as a producer and co-director. And I love to write. I love everything about film, and I love script supervising. And I'm excited to see more natives out on sets when I'm working.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Janelle. And Victoria.
Hi, hey. I'm Victoria Cheyenne. I'm from the Northern Cheyenne and Aymara Nations. I'm an assistant editor at Comedy Central. I'm also a documentary filmmaker. I'm so happy to be here talking with everybody. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. All right, well, let's get into it. And, part of it, I love starting with a good creation story, but part of this creation story is really, how did each of you get your start in the entertainment industry? Who would like to go first? Don't make me call on anyone. I see Janelle smiling really big. So Janelle, you get to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I really have only ever wanted to be involved in film industry, making movies, telling stories. So I went to school for film in Utah, graduated with a film degree, and from there I had professors who were just so kind, who just threw me into projects as soon as I graduated, and I built myself up from there, script supervising, production assisting, first ADing, kind of everything. I've been in all of the jobs, all the departments. It's kind of the first few projects you feel out where you feel most comfortable. And I landed a movie as a script supervisor and loved it, immediately loved it. It was just everything my brain is wired to do, organize, but at the same time have a creative input voice with the director and the DP and all the departments, really. So that's kind of how I started, was film school.
That's awesome. Victoria, what about you? How did you get started?
I got started, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and there was a booming film industry there. I kind of threw myself into any position where I could get on set, and I was lucky enough to have a lot of opportunities to just do a lot of PA work in the area. Realizing that my interest was mostly in post-production, I took a lot of time to use free online resources to learning about different NLEs, learning how to use Premiere Pro and getting really comfortable. I was able to start taking on, documentary assistant editing work, starting out as a post PA and then moving up to an assistant editor. So that was kind of the start of my journey. It was a lot of working and keeping in touch with people and remembering all those amazing contacts to get started, and also giving back to everyone who I see in the same shoes of where I was, because that's the hardest part, is when you're just starting.
Wow. Awesome. All right, Crystal and Rory, let's hear from each of you. Who wants to go first?
I'll go because Rory just looked at me like. So I grew up kind of a nerd in front of the TV, where TV kind of raised me, and I say that because I'm a military daughter, so I grew up everywhere, and it felt like that was the most relatable place for me, even though it was segregated. Like, there were the white shows and then there were the people of color shows, and so for me, I just felt myself kind of caught into two different worlds, because I was watching shows that I didn't really see myself in. And that really gave me a passion for starting to pursue television. I didn't really have any connections at all, but like people who don't go to film school, my degrees in communications and media studies. So that's the route that I took. And then, like Victoria was saying, I threw myself into any production that came through, and it was Atlanta for me as well. I really did a lot of indie work, a lot of work as a production secretary, production assistant, worked my way up, eventually became an associate producer when I decided to move to LA and finally fought fear and decided to make the move, and did that, and then ended up in a writer's room. So that was really cool.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, Rory, we're coming to you.
Just I forgot I was on the panel. I was just listening to everyone. This is awesome. And similar experience, raised by the TV, always loved film. Like I was the camera operator in elementary school for the morning announcements. And, growing up, would just make little movies with camcorders and things with my family and friends, like little horror movies out in the woods. And that kind of led to just some local, rural Adair County, Oklahoma, like videography work, like weddings. A lot of friends are musicians, you want to make some promotional material for them. And eventually got hired to work for my tribe's TV show. We have a little documentary program. I got hired as an intern, and my daily drive was 3 hours, so an hour and a half to Tulsa, hour and a half back home to Westville. But there's so few opportunities. It's just, if that's all there is, might as well just dive on it. And especially at that time, it was Sterling Harja's old production company that was helping the tribe make those. And so having that just Tulsa group of filmmakers there that's been doing it for so long and learning from them, I learned everything I could. Like I soaked everything I could up. Learned how to edit from them, learned how to run a professional camera, because I thought I was just taking it back home, But eventually got hired as a producer to work on the show and did that for a little while. Won some regional Emmys off that. That was pretty cool. And left that about a year and a half ago to see what I could do on my own. And work's been steady, there's a lot of stories to tell, and, running out of steam. I think that's mostly it. Did a lot of screenwriting labs this year, hoping to focus on that some more. But
that's awesome. Well, I want to throw kind of just a question out there, and anybody can respond. But just based on some of the things you're always saying, like how many of us were, raised on television, right? I was a latchkey kid, right? And I was an only child, so that TV was like my best friend every day when I came home. And one of the things, I don't know if folks remember, I'm way older than you guys, but back in the day, one of the things that was always on after school was Elmer Fudd, Bugs Bunny, and it was always sort of these Western themes. But I'll never forget, I think it was in about third grade, watching this picture of this very stereotypical, Native man, big red nose, really, big and all the things. And he walked across the screen and he was wearing a sash that said Vanishing American. And he walked across and he disappeared. And I'll never forget that. And I think about growing up, how we didn't really see a lot of Native people maybe on TV. And if we did, it wasn't always the best thing. And it certainly had an impact, I know, on sort of my trajectory. But I'm just curious for you, for all of you in different ways, how did the lack of, or maybe the things you did see maybe inspire you even going into this industry? And I'm just going to throw it out to whoever wants to chime in.
I'm gonna jump in. It really resonated with me. I think about, there were like the classic things that my mom showed me. My mom, distinctly, I remember actually growing up watching Northern Exposure, probably earlier than I should have seen that show. But it was my mom's favorite show. And while they did a lot of things, they didn't do everything right. Elaine being like such a strong Indigenous woman, and also like constantly putting this very like this white man in his place was something I really enjoyed being able to see representation of. But I also think about the fact that, I know Spirit Rangers has come out now, and just the idea, and there's like Molly of Denali. And so being able to see like children's shows that exist now that people are working on that really are incorporating those stories and working hard to educate and be fun, entertaining, and create that representation is massive. As someone who like didn't have any sort of representation in children's media, and so for me, I definitely encourage what I do. I bring into every space I'm thinking about. updating and educating people on the way that they're speaking. Particularly, like I've worked in a lot of corporate settings where it has been an immediate thing to be the one to say, let's stop using the word powwow to talk about having a meeting, and things that people just aren't thinking about that are so obvious to me. But yeah, so that's what I would say.
That's awesome. Anyone else want to share anything?
You know, growing up watching TV, like there were always like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies after The Simpsons, you know, in the evening. And just I remember this year when Prey came out, like that I was able to sit down with my kid and watch, you know, Indigenous woman just, you know, whoop up on a predator. It was awesome. I was like, I didn't get that. You know, it's just
So
I'm very
true.
happy with the way things are going. This is awesome.
So true. She's such a badass. It's so great. And I love the res dog. Res dogs even back then. Yeah. All right. Well, let's kind of dive in more into each of you. And I would love to hear from each of you, you know, what was your first project like, and think back and then think about, you know, also how have you grown since then from your very first thing you did? Crystal, we'll start with you.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I threw myself into theater. I was a theater girl pretty early because that was the only place that I could really express myself. I didn't have any industry connections or anything like that. So when I first got started, I was doing improv and acting. So that was kind of my kind of my entryway into the industry. But I knew words were so powerful, and I knew that I wanted to tell stories. I just didn't know how. So I was just using my emotions to kind of create these stories. I would really say that I was the first Hallmark movie I did. I was in production, so I was a production coordinator for that. And that was really fun to be able to see everybody on set and be able to understand how things worked and how things moved and the things that I was used to seeing on television in these movies, like how they all came together, especially the world of theater. It's very, it's amazing because can't call cut in the middle of a bad performance, right? Like you kind of just deal with whatever happens while it's happening. And the power of watching film and TV kind of come to life. And even though I was doing more of the admin task, I still felt like a part of something. And I knew that I wouldn't really see the finished product until later. And I really didn't see myself as any type of performer of that regard. But that whet something in me that I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so basically, long story short, my first industry job was at The Voice as an associate producer. And I was able to kind of get that unscripted view, work with a team that was Emmy Award winning, and kind of got my feet wet there, was able to participate in meetings where my voice mattered, and was more on the creative side. And that was so cool to be able to be tapped to give a voice to things. And then that carried on to my experience in the writer's room, of being able to hear people share stories. One of my favorite shows is Rutherford Falls, because I'm a huge comedy head. So that is, in comedy specifically, like laughter to me is healing. And I think we all need a lot of healing right now with everything that's been going on in our world. But for me, that's kind of my journey of how I got to where I'm at now. It really was a journey. So
I love that so much. And, you know, and laughter is medicine. I couldn't agree more, right? I want nothing but comedy right now, for sure. What about you, Janelle? Tell us about your first project and kind of how you feel like you've grown.
Yeah, so I did do a lot of like production assistant work throughout college on several different things like reality TV shows and things like that. But I was really lucky that when I graduated, one of my first gigs was as a script supervisor for a feature film. But it was a very low budget feature film. And I don't think I even really got paid. Maybe I got like a stipend or something. And I had never script supervised through all of college. I was more of the production track, like first ADing and stuff like that. So I had no idea what I was doing. They just My professor called me one day and was like, "There's a movie that needs a script supervisor. You're going to the production meeting on Monday. Don't be late." And um, it's definitely, looking back, is a blessing now, because that's what I do for majority of my projects is script supervising. I'm part of the union here in my area. But yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I had some really great crew members, a great second AC and a great sound mixer who really like kind of just tutored me and taught me what I should be doing. And it was really fun. It was a movie called Storm Rider with Kevin Sorbo and C. Thomas Howell. So it's like a horse family movie. But I fell in love with script supervising. Again, it's just like it made all of the parts of my brain that work just click together. And it was like being a part of a team in a way that I had never really experienced before. In production, you're part of a crew, you're part of a family. But this was really like the directors depending on you, the director of photography is depending on you, every department is depending on you in one way or another to have their back. And it was really daunting to be thrown into that at first. But I think throughout every project that I've done, and even to this day, it's now 10 years later, every project I do, I get a little bit better. And I'm always working on being able to be open to making mistakes. And I think when you're on set, it's good to like own up to the fact that we don't know everything all the time. We're all just doing our best. And it's nice to have that community of people around you to just always be like, this didn't go as we planned today, but we're going to get through it. And that only makes you better for the next project. And I think that's definitely something that I try to do in every project, is to go in, giving 100%, but knowing that my next gig, I'll be 10% better.
I absolutely love that. And I mean, it's as I look back and I know in my career, and I'm sure all of yours, right, with those moments where we were just working for free, just working to learn whatever we could and like hustling. And it's really nice when you finally start getting paid. But I love what you're saying is like, it just sounds like what you're really talking about. It's a continual process of learning and honing your craft, right? And I think that's really, really powerful. So Victoria, what about you?
Yeah, I also love that, Janelle. Thinking about like 10% better each time. I remember I'm like reflecting on this now, my first time really on a professional set. I was working as a production assistant at the time back in Atlanta. It was for an episode of Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. And it was a traveling episode of the show with comedian Ashley Nicole Black and Stacey Abrams. And I was a PA like with Stacey Abrams the whole time. And she is a very powerful woman. And it was just really incredible to be around her all day. And I was very nervous to be on set. And she just had so much wisdom to share and wanted to talk and just was open to talking to everyone on set. And I loved how much she wanted to like talk about her platform and things, but also was like leaning into doing these comedy sketches for the show that were phenomenal. And I think it circles back to like this whole idea of like comedy can create change. I really believe that. And it like is what unites us. Like comedy is good medicine. And so I mean, my path has been kind of mixed from there. I've done a lot of documentary work and a lot of working in like archival content and things like that. But I seem to have circled back to comedy without even intending to. And while I do documentary work on my own, I also, I'm an assistant editor at Comedy Central, and being able to tie back these stories and bring back comedy to create change, that's just super, super important to me. And so as I've learned and grown, I think working in post-production, it's a lot about seeing the story and bringing it to life and being a part of that step of, after it's been captured, how do we get it out to the world in the best way possible. And so again, that's been a long learning journey, and it just has involved, looking back on that like first time on set, involves listening and asking lots and lots of questions, even when you're afraid to. There really is no such thing as stupid questions. It's how you learn.
I totally believe that, honestly. And I just think sometimes even when we make mistakes, it's like some of the greatest wisdom. It might not be fun at the time, right? But sometimes the greatest lessons come out of that. And plus on comedy for social change, right? We just need more of it in this world right now. What about you, Rory? What's your first project and how have you grown since then?
My first, I guess, professional projects probably during that internship at the Cherokee Nation, and my boss had sent me to find pictures of some strawberry farmers, Cherokees from Stillwell, because they were doing a story on a Stillwell strawberry grower. And I went to the local historic society in Adair County, and got everything they had, and start talking for a while, and people get really helpful, and just they gave me stacks and stacks of information about the strawberry festival, strawberry growers, and all of this. And when I took it back the next day, my boss was like, there's almost enough stuff here that you could do like a story on the Stillwell Strawberry Festival. And I was like, oh yeah. And then, my family's from Stillwell, and we'd always go to the Strawberry Festival. It's kind of what would bring people together there. And I was like, here's what and you can cover this and this and this and this. And she was like, do you want to write it? I was like, yes, of course. And wrote it, got some notes on it, and kind of crafted it. And at that point I was like, can I edit it too? And so I got to, learn that process of ingesting all that archival material and editing it together. So I got, to produce, write, and edit a story as an intern. That was pretty cool.
That's really cool. I I love that. But I think also, what I hear in that too is just also your passion, right? And being curious, right? That ends up making you a great producer, right? And kind of unexpected, right? That it turned into just one assignment and it ended up an opportunity, right? To do the whole thing. I want to throw another kind of, curveball question at all of you because, it's so exciting to hear each one of your journeys, right? And to hear how you're growing and all the things. But I'm just wondering, is there like a moment you can reflect on where you really hit a challenge, right? And stepping into this world that had a big learning lesson for you that kind of spurred you forward or maybe even made you think about kind of a change in approach. Does anything come to mind for anyone? Because this industry ain't easy. We know that, right?
I can speak to that. I think with writing, it's subjective. And you're telling a story, you're saying something, and you want other people to get it, and you want everything to come into place with your characters, being able to emote the things that you're saying, and for people who read it to understand. And I think that a challenge is definitely the imposter syndrome, I felt. Like when I got out here and I was like, I don't know anyone, I'm freaking out. What do I do? But somehow I'm here, which I knew was a blessing. But it definitely was something I had to overcome. And then being in rooms and feeling like, well, who am I to be in a room? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't. And you're trying to figure it out, but you're listening to people give voice and you're listening to people brainstorm. And it's such a beautiful process to be a part of that I felt like I wanted to get in and help. And then I'm like, wait, no, I'm the writer's assistant. I just need to continue to take notes and listen and learn. And that was a hump for me because prior to really saying yes full-time to the industry, I did international human resources. So yeah, so I was working with like Fortune 500 companies and clients and was always the person that people would go to for solutions. So I think when you're a solutions-oriented person and you're in a position where you kind of need to take a step back and just really listen and absorb, that's something that I had to go, okay, that's enough. It's enough. I'm still representing myself. I'm still able to contribute however I can to help other people stay on track. And I had to realize my worth. I had to come to a place where I was like, you know what? I'm writing things, I'm listening, I'm growing as a writer, but I have my place here too. And the right people will see that. And so that's kind of, I had to come to that. That wasn't an instantaneous thing. So I still have moments of, I think that imposter syndrome will rear its head where you want to compare yourself to other people and you can't do that. And so that was the toughest challenge. I think that I'm still working through, but I definitely can say I can reflect on now and just feel very blessed to be able to do that. So.
Oh my gosh, Crystal, that is so powerful what you just shared, and thank you so much. I mean, I'm count myself as like an old broad here, and there's never a time at some point that I'm not feel like I'm navigating imposter syndrome. And I'm just like, and I think that's really natural as we move through our careers and take on new challenges. I mean, I open it up to the group of the others of you, like Crystal, experience that feeling of imposter syndrome, or was there a different kind of challenge that really kind of forced you to kind of think about your work in a different way?
I just want to touch on what Crystal said about really, thinking about understanding your worth. I think was definitely something that I struggled with for a while, especially being, a Native woman in film. You're surrounded by predominantly white crew members, producers, you know, above the line crew. It definitely was a challenge at a certain point where, you're still doing a day job because you're not meeting the right people, or you think you're not working hard enough, or, it's just a struggle of when do you make that jump to this is what I want to pursue, like 100%. That was definitely something I struggled with. And then especially when COVID hit, that was another big challenge of, I mean, I also moved and so I was in a new area, and in this industry, it's so tricky to navigate, networking, and how do you get your work out there if you're not necessarily like an actor, or somebody who's in front of the camera, or somebody who's helping produce. And if you're just a below the line crew person, it's like, how do you navigate getting your work consistently seen and like being hired over and over again? I think is something I still tend to struggle with. But I definitely think like things like Array and this community is, something that has definitely helped me.
I love that. Yeah, COVID, what a challenge, right? For all of you and so many people. Rory, Victoria, what about you?
I'd love to add on that, I mean, for me, I think similarly, I've never worked in post-production, with any other women. I've always been the only woman on any team I've ever worked in post-production, let alone working with any other Indigenous women, like, and that's always been hard. I think realizing the ability to, as difficult as that can be, like, stand in that strength and push forward and find community has been the thing that's like stopped me from giving up a lot of the time. Finding resources like Array has been absolutely incredible, and being able to see the opportunity I have to grow and change. I work in the digital component, and I had the opportunity recently, to co-direct and produce, a comedy sketch where I was able to like work with another co-director who is a woman and hire a woman who is our like amazing DP. And that felt powerful and really incredible. And so having those opportunities, or even just last week, I was able to share a short film that I made about Indigenous students to my coworkers and talk about like my culture, my experiences, and things I wanted to share. And I was able to speak with a student from the college I had previously gone to, where I had no space, I had no representation. I had a really horrible experience there. And they had just told me that they had been able to start their like own Indigenous Peoples Club, which didn't formally exist there. And so they've, found inspiration. And I was so amazed that they were able to tell me that they found that encouragement in their art school to work to create those spaces for more students. So I think finding your community has been the thing that's kept me going, and being able to encourage people to find those pockets and create them when they can has really just kept me going.
Well, I think that's such a powerful message, right? Because in talking with so many different Indigenous, but, creators of color, people working on crews, that sometimes it can be really isolating and lonely, right? And especially if you are kind of finding those moments where inevitably sometimes we run into those challenges because of who we are, where we come from. So I just love that message about finding a way to build your community, for support. What about you, Rory?
There was at one point I was doing kind of doing a directing job for hire, and my DP was not a great person, but not Indigenous, and we were filming some young Indigenous people, and I'd kind of stepped away to talk with someone in charge there, and he accidentally filmed them doing some ceremony, and so I kind of got wind of it and made sure to let the people I was working for know. And I really stressed the importance of not showing this, not including an edit, don't do anything with it. And a few months later, I get to see an edit of it, and like every single little bit of that footage was included. And there's just a kind of a point where I know I'd said it a few times, and just you start kicking around in your head like the importance of representing community properly versus like a potential future paycheck, like how you kind of get pulled between those. And just I guess I'm kind of ornery, so I just kind of riled up. I was like, this is fine, like I'll see these people again. I may not see these people from this job again, so it's kind of an easy decision. You want to represent your people correctly.
Yeah, that's so powerful because all of you are really on the front lines, right? Of trying to do everything you can to ensure that representation, and in whatever community, the people that you're telling on screen, there's a lot of responsibility, but it also takes a lot of courage too, right? To kind of step up in the face of that. So thank you for sharing that, Rory. Well, on the flip side of challenges, I just would love to know from each of you, like, what is your who or what is your creative inspiration, and kind of also grounds you as well. Who wants to go first? Everybody's thinking deep thoughts. Janelle.
I'll go. I think currently anyone who's Indigenous in media is going to say, everyone from Sterling Harjo to the writers of Rutherford Falls, the writers of Res Dogs, the writers of Prey, producers and creators of all of the Native media that is currently out, is just so inspiring. And really giving all of us Native crew the hope and like the proof that our stories are valid and people want to see more of them. People want to be, invited to our table to experience, all of our joy and our sadness and what our communities are about. Our stories need to be out there for people to understand, something that has not been portrayed like this as it has before. And it's really driving me to continue to pursue, just putting myself out there as much as I can creatively in any way.
I love that. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Who or what is your creative inspiration?
I'll go.
So begrudgingly, you're like, I'll go, fine.
I don't know. I'm shy, I guess, but that's my family. They've been really supportive, and like if I'm ever feeling down, feeling like I'm having imposter syndrome right now. Like why am I talking? Like, but they always kind of encourage me, and I swear, like if any of them were ever like, hey, why don't you go get a real job? I would just crumble. But they've been super supportive, and anytime I get down in the dumps, my wife always goes, well, what would a mediocre white man do? Like, oh, you probably not have any of these thoughts, so let's just keep going.
I love that. The power of family. What about you, Victoria?
I love that, Rory. Creative, I'm going to use kind of liberally, but I would say that Sasheen Littlefeather has been on my mind a lot lately, since she passed over, and I just remember being like a little kid and my mom pulling up her speech and sharing that with me, and kind of the trauma of her experience. And seeing like how interesting it is to go full circle, and how despite everything that she went through, she had so much wisdom to share when she spoke at the honoring event before she passed. And I think about like what she said about when you stand for your truth, that you're keeping her voice and the voice of our nations of people alive. And I just think about that a lot in not holding back from speaking up, and holding my truth and my strength in spaces where it doesn't necessarily feel the safest to do so, because it helps to open doors and create change. So I think that's been what's inspired me a lot lately.
That's really powerful. Thank you so much. What about you, Crystal?
Definitely my family, I will say creatively. Just their encouragement from seeing the steps of the journey that have been yes and, yes and, yes and kind of accepting that, I think has been helping my creativity. And then also, I know we mentioned Rutherford Falls, so Sierra Teller Ornelius. She specifically, I think, creating a character that you follow that you normally don't get to see, kind of as a side character that you follow, is something very special to me. And I find that that opened a door for my imagination and my creativity when I saw that a writer who was already on shows that I really respected. Happy Endings is one of my favorite shows in the whole world. But seeing somebody as a Indigenous woman that had done that for me was like, that's the type of comedy I respond to. That's what I write. That's who I connect with. But seeing that character that we don't take our eyes off of is very beautiful to me. So that helped me be able to go, you know what, I'm going to create characters that I'm interested in and that I want to see and that remind me of me and my friends and my family. So it gave me courage to do that.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And Sierra is just one of my sheroes, right? And just to see like first Native woman showrunner, right? And but just like the way that she's done that with characters, but I also like love that notion, as we talk about family, but I think also community and even family that we choose and we make, and the way that we can really support each other and hold open doors. And I think that's what was so cool about Sierra's experience, is the way that she opened doors, and Janish meeting and all kinds of people, coming in and just, new opportunities. I know Sterling has done that a lot as well, right? To kind of just really open up that door and let's go. And people getting opportunities to first time in a writer's room, first time to direct, all the things. So I just think that's really powerful. So thank you for sharing that. Well, hey, we're having some amazing questions come in from the audience. So I want to go ahead and kind of throw some of these. So I've got my glasses on because it's like really tiny little font. I'm trying to like figure this out here. So throwing this out to you all. So this is the first question from, I think, Monet. And Monet's wanting to know, is anyone still in front of the camera and working behind the scenes? Any of you front and doing both? Okay. All right. Because if so, she was looking for advice on how to be successful on both sides. Does anybody just want to just say just a quick piece of advice on how you're successful behind the scenes?
Don't be rude. Like, just be easy to work with. Like that goes really far. Like people that are hard to work with just don't last. Like, you've got to be cool headed, and because it's long days, it's hard work. If somebody's there making it harder, it's just it's a pain. You don't want to have them around, and so it gets you further than you think. Just being cool headed.
I love that. Any other key little snippets of advice on how to be successful?
Yeah, sure. I would add, just don't similarly where like don't be above anything. I think it can be a common problem for people who would like to be more in talent roles to walk into crew positions feeling not so eager to fulfill that role. The people who I've known, I've had friends who have been both, you know, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and the best people who had the most success were the ones who worked their hardest, no matter what the role was, and came in without any sort of attitude about it. Those are the people who everyone wants to see do well in whatever their endeavors are. A lot of people in this industry, whether it's being in front of the camera or just creating their own work or directing, like have other ambitions in this. So the more everyone can support each other and you share that with your attitude, the better.
I absolutely love that advice, and I'm such a big believer. No matter how old you are, what station you are, right? Never be above anything. Any other tips, Janelle, Crystal?
I mean, I agree with Rory and Victoria, just about being as open to the process as you can, and yeah, just not letting anything really. I mean, there are some days, you know, that are long and hard, and I think honesty is always the best. If you're just having a hard day, it's like, hey guys, I'm having kind of a hard day today, so I'm sorry ahead of time for anything, but you know, it's just, I would say, try to leave any
Mhm.
anything like that at the door when you step on set. And I think as long as you're honest with people, it's always like, you know, people will come and rally behind you and say, you know, we'll take care of you today. I think honesty is
Mm,
always the best policy on set.
I love that. Crystal?
I think it's just remember that you're creating either way. I think it's really important
Mm,
to keep in mind, regardless if you're behind or in front of the camera. I think that it's yes, saying yes and like I said earlier, we just talked about openness. Victoria and Rory and Janelle are all correct. It's just one of those things I think for me where it's remembering that you're there to create something with other people. And I think if you keep that in mind, it kind of humbles you to be able to be like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing as long as I get to create.
mm.
That attitude is super beautiful, I think, to a lot of people. So just
I
remember
love
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that that kind of everything that you all are saying, I think also lends itself to just probably propelling you into new opportunities, right? Cool. All right. So we have another question from the audience, and I'm just going to throw this out, and whoever wants to, chime in and certainly build on each other's answers. But the question is from Joy, and she asks, "Do you think innovation in streaming has opened up more opportunities to grow your careers, or passion projects?"
I'll answer. I think 100%. Being able, I mean, it's kind of the best of both worlds. Like everyone can get their story and their project out there. And a lot of the times that means maybe yours might specifically not be seen by a larger crowd just because of how many streaming services you're able to put your project on. There's like many platforms that you can um, put your project on, and I think that can hurt you. But for me personally, I think it's opened a lot of opportunities for me to feel like I can start to pursue to direct and produce my own projects, because I know that even if it's just 10 of my friends who are able to watch it, they're able to watch it from, you know, all across the world, wherever they are. And I think that's for beginning indie filmmakers, I think it's more of a helpful thing than it is a hindrance. And again, like with all of the new shows that we have coming out, I don't think any of those really would have hit the massive target audience that they have if there weren't all of these different streaming platforms. But again, it's, you know, there's pros and cons to the whole thing.
That's awesome. Thank you, Janelle. Does anybody else want to jump into that question? All right. We've got a lot more audience questions and a couple like definite question that I want to ask you at the end. So our next question is, from audience member who says, so many people, including me, still need to be educated on solidarity work. What are some resources that we can investigate on our own to be better allies and come together to ensure space is made for more stories and more voices? So who'd like to start us off?
I mean, I'd love to highlight your own resource, IllumiNative, and particularly IllumiNative's like media PDF that takes you through representation and the best way to tell stories and work with Indigenous creatives. I think is absolutely phenomenal and has so many great resources to get started. So I would say if you are in the world of media, you work in crew, you tell stories, I would say a great starting point is going over to IllumiNative and reading that. I've shared that resource with so many because I think it is just a great launching point to that conversation and gives a lot of notice to like where you can go to learn more.
Thank you, Victoria, and I'll slip you that $20 when we're done. No, thank you so much. Our team is so passionate about this work and all the things and all the work that you all do. Who else has some advice, right? Because so many people know so little about Indigenous peoples and our experiences. You know, do some of you have some other points of advice or resources you want to suggest?
There's one that's like specifically Cherokee. I know there's a website, I think it's called Think Salagi. So if anybody's ever looking for like a Cherokee like scholar or someone to go over like just you need someone that's a Cherokee expert on something. Like I think it's Dr. Julie Reed, and I think she's one of the main people that puts it up. It's a really good resource. I usually give that to people when they're trying to find someone Cherokee for something.
I love that. That's really great. Crystal, Janelle, any advice you want to share?
I would say just any of the Indigenous artists and creators that you love, just simply by going to like their social medias. They're always great at posting things on, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or just like the little tidbits of who they are as creators and Indigenous people. I think it's always great to just seek out others in the same community.
I think on that, watching their shows, like supporting, buying their books, like directly from them, I think that that's so important. And understanding the land that you come from and understanding where you come from is super important too, and who was there before. And I think that paying respect to that is super beautiful and important. And I know a lot of organizations are trying to do that. So I guess that's an organization tip, that they began to recognize that as well as where they're from, and recognizing the Indigenous community that is there. I think that's one way to show solidarity as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we are getting ready to get into a speed round here, because I'm going to try to cram some questions in before we wrap up at the top of the hour. So, I think, again, just like so grateful to, what Array Crew is doing. I mean, when it was announced, it's so powerful, and I think particularly, I know all of you have probably navigated this, but so many times over the years, I know people were like, well, there's not even Indigenous people to hire. There's not people, color to hire in these roles. And we just know that that's clearly not the case. So I'm just wondering, as Array Crew is just so committed to inclusive hiring practice, can each of you kind of quickly just share what it means to you to have to create these opportunities when hiring for projects? And really, to kind of, not only about the opportunity, but like, what is the impact? Like, what are you seeing? And why is this good for industry instead of the should to do? Why is this just good?
I mean, I usually try to bring on Indigenous PAs, just even if they're interested, if they have no background whatsoever. Because if they're hardworking, they'll be able to pick something up. A lot of this it's like any other job, you can pick it up on set. And I just think like, how many of those people that you give a little opportunity to, maybe they make your favorite movie in 10 years, that they stick with it,
I love that.
I think there's such an opportunity to create characters that are more than afterthoughts. I think, like I said, when you stay with the characters that you normally think of the side characters and realize that we exist out in the world and don't add stereotypes to us would be lovely to anybody that is making, creating projects. I think kind of recognizing that is powerful, I would say. Also, on top of that, it's, for me, I guess, one of the things when I am hiring, I definitely want to make sure that my crew and my characters are true to the people that are behind the character, because I think that that's important in giving those jobs. But definitely, I would say I send jobs to people that I know that are Black, Natives, Indigenous, in general, like helping out your friends or people that you know in your community that might be looking for positions as well. I think, I wouldn't be here if somebody wouldn't have taken a chance on me. So it's always important to like give back. So
I love that. Give back, but pay it forward, right? I just think that there's some really great power in that when we can take a moment and reflect on, just like you said, like people that helped open doors for you and how we're now in the positions you're in, how you continue to pay it forward. Victoria, Janelle? You go, Janelle.
Just building on what Crystal said, like helping to break stereotypes that we are people out in the real world. I know starting like 10, 12 years ago, I was the only Native person on sets I would work on. And, running into those things about like, oh, let's gather around for a powwow and stuff like that. And I had no one to, help back me up and saying like, hey, can we not do that? Whereas now, I get on sets and there's like a handful of us, which again is like not ideal, but it's like the sense of community and like breaking those stereotypes that, yeah, we are real people in the real world, and hiring more of us behind the scenes will only help break those more.
Awesome.
Agreed. I think it's more than just the people above the line. I think when you talk about diversifying stories, you have to also diversify those spaces with different voices that are going to encourage the ability to tell those stories. And having something like a Ray Crew as something that is so accessible and so easy to say, hey, just go here and look, there's no excuses. And I know it's already creating change, and it's gotten me in the room when it was so much harder for me to get into the room before.
Oh, I love that. That's so exciting. All right, so we're getting into the final question here. And this is a super fun one. So, all right, what I'd like you all to think about is if you could recommend one film or filmmaker to the crew members that are watching here tonight, what should they go watch and why? And I guess where would they find it? Film or filmmaker? What would you recommend?
I have two.
Okay.
The film would be Beans, which was made. I believe it came out in 2020. Such a phenomenal film. Everybody should watch that. And filmmaker would be Sydney Freeland, who I've had the pleasure of working with before. I worked on a movie called Deidre and Lainey Train, and you can find that on Netflix.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, who's next?
I would recommend the film Utama. It's from the director Alejandro Grizzi, and he's a Bolivian filmmaker. The film came out this year, premiering at Sundance as Aymara, as I'm half Northern Cheyenne, half Aymara. The Aymara tribe we come from Bolivia, and the other regional tribe is the Quechua people. And this story is an indigenous Bolivian story, like set in the plateaus of Bolivia. When I saw it, I cried because I just never saw anything that represented, where my mom grew up. It's absolutely beautiful. It's in theaters right now. I cannot recommend it enough.
Oh, that's so great. All right, Rory and Crystal, bring it home. We got a minute.
I've been thinking about Jeff Barnaby lately. When I was in this writing lab, I was writing a horror film, and I think Indigenous people, we don't like to see Indigenous people in trouble, or like, something bad might happen to them. And so I was having some trouble, and, he passed away, and I revisited his films, and it gave me a little bit of inspiration to, like, a horror movie where nobody's in trouble is kind of boring. So, check his films out. I think they're on Shudder, Amazon. I bought them all on Blu-ray,
Yeah, Thank you for that. All right, Crystal, bring us home.
I had to stop my alarm. I was like, you know, I'm coming up. No, I've already said it. I feel obsessive because I'm in TV world. So I'm going to say it again. Check out Rutherford Falls. I know it's already canceled, which makes me really sad, but you have to watch it because I feel like seeing characters that, again, are afterthoughts, seeing them be real life characters that, as we are, is so beautiful. And to see it on television it's amazing. So I would definitely check it out. I have talked to people that somehow have not watched it, and yeah, it's great. I definitely would watch it. And it has a lot of, I feel like through comedy, there's a lot of ninja attacks where you can kind of give people the truth with like sweetener. That's why I love comedy. So it's, yeah, definitely watch it.
I love that ninja attacks. It's so good, and it is one of the best kept secrets. So please go watch Rutherford Falls on Peacock. But thank you so much for this amazing conversation, and I'm so grateful to the powerful, amazing work of Array crew, Array, all things Miss Ava, and all the just brilliant people that work for Array. But to each and every one of you, because you are transforming the industry. And I want to say that to everybody that's watching tonight. It's like you are on the front lines of just creating spaciousness and representation, and so that all of us, no matter where we come from, we can really feel seen and represented. And that's all the things. So I just want to again say thank you to each and every one of you, and just wish you well, and again wish everyone happy Native American Heritage, Indigenous Peoples Month. Don't forget to follow IllumiNatives, and everybody take care and have a really, really lovely evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Crystal.